Hi everyone, we are back now, and I have the pleasure to introduce our friend Theo Ferguson. She's the CEO of Healing Vital Systems, and also she's a founding member of Slow Money National and also the NorCal chapter. And she has been one of the main supporters behind Soul Not All, behind Justice Begins with Seeds. And we know her for many years, and her work is very impressive because she has been like everywhere. Now she has a big project, a very important project in Southern California. I think she's going to be talking a little about it. And I'm just going to leave the microphone open for Theo Ferguson. Thank you for being here, Theo. And we're going to see you in a little. Bye.
Great. So thank you, Miguel. Actually, I'm not going to be talking about that project. I'm going to be talking about an opportunity for all of us. So basically, Peter, are you going to put my slides on, or how does this work? Peter, there we go. Okay, great. So I just want people to understand that first of all, I want to thank you all and wish you a great time of day. And I want to thank the Ohlone people on whose land I stand. And please thank the Indigenous people in your area on whose land you stand. If you're an Indigenous person, thank you for your gratitude to the land. You have maintained the balance we all need to learn from you. I also want to thank the folks at Soil Not Oil for taking on this incredible opportunity. I quote Gloria Steinem, "It's more rewarding to watch money change the world than to watch it accumulate." So my name is Theodosia Hamilton Ferguson. I'm called Theo. I'm sharing with you a great opportunity to heal an environmental or social goal about which you are passionate. You will learn how to invest yourself and your assets to achieve more health, vitality, and justice in your community, wherever your community might be. Next slides, please. This is an interesting, United for Fair Economy in New York has done some really wonderful things. And so the first question that I want to ask is, what is enough? Were we ever a functioning democracy? We were an oligarchy from 1890 through 1937. And then we elected President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and he began the New Deal. And during that period of the New Deal, we grew together. This was a time we celebrated equity and democracy. In comparing the growth of the US family incomes, the bottom grew from 20% to 118%. And the top income earners grew 86%. And Social Security was made law. With the Reagan tax changes in the 1980s, the bottom 20% were ground into the dirt at -7%. And the top income earners grew 224%. You see that giant tree? That is not a flower. That is a giant tree. From 2008 through the present, the oligarchy in charge have been marketing democracy to the rest of the world while growing the top income earners to new and obscene heights. Next, please. So what did happen to America's political center of gravity? This is an amazing image. It shows you how centrist the Democratic Party is. And look at where that radical right is. It is way beyond the British and Canadian conservatives. Okay, we worked really, really hard to usher in a Democratic president, a vice president, a House of Representatives, and a US Senate, but it's so close. The vice president has to break the ties in the Senate. What the Trump team really wants us to swallow is the lie that he is the rightful president and the election was crooked. Malignant narcissism in full throttle. And the B, as in billion-dollar boys, are hot to keep the money they extorted that made them richer than many nations. Many of our friends and relatives are fighting to protect the recall of governors and bills against who can vote and gerrymandering so that they are safe, radical right Republican districts. Whoops, sorry, wrong place. And what they're offering to us, nothing. They want the good old days where they can get 224% increase over last year, more than the year before, and they want to keep it. And they keep the trend going and going. And so our Democratic associates and ourselves have to like zone guard these, tear it all down and take over the government, AKA January 6, 2011 people. These are the people that we have to, zone guard. But I'm not talking about these associates, these wonderful people who are zone guarding. I'm talking about something else that needs to be addressed. Peter. Next slide, please. I think you skipped too far. There's one in between. There we go. Thank you. So anyone with more than enough, please consider addressing the outstanding issues that our species has caused to become globally distributed disasters. Here you have before us just a short list. We know that these were the results of our own actions. Just like I learned, women are worthless. Any family that had any money immediately told their young women that they were worthless. I was told when I was 7. My mother and grandmother were told, there, dear, don't worry your pretty head about money. We'll take care of that. And that's how the brother, husband, father stole his sister's power. Each of us, women, men, must decide our own worth as it is our own decision. No one can tell another they are worthless. The only people who know they are feeling worthless, or they feel worthless themselves and need to have someone to step up. Power is not a democratic value. Social cohesion is more important than ever. Can we learn to listen, learn each other's languages, respect each other's points of view? Democracy is not agreeing with each other, but being civil in our discourse. After college, I got a job. And since I was 23, I've earned enough money to cover rent and meals. At 37, before I inherited some money, I owned a piece of an old farmhouse that we divided into 4 parts in the middle of the city and converted into a condo in downtown Berkeley. 22 years later, I inherited 2 trusts and an active portfolio, but I already had enough. The issues I just elevated, these noted above, are very desperately in need of champions. If you have enough for your needs, your family needs, your visions, but you've not yet acted on your visions, but you're really angry or despondent about one or more of these disasters, champion the one that's most important to you. Peter, next slide, please. Just a moment, please. So we have some pushback from natural systems, right? The impact of COVID-19 on global health goals. And now we're entering the Delta COVID cycle. Peter, next slide, please. The earth is heating up to a degree that the vegetation goes into what's called vapor pressure deficit. There's a really excellent Atlantic Monthly article I noted under that incredible firestorm in the upper left-hand corner. Floods are extreme from the north of Freiburg to the west in Luxembourg and beyond Frankfurt in the east. These are just some slides from that. And all of these things will be on my website. So if you're interested, great. So next slide, please. This is amazing. When cities declared racism a public health issue, this designation allowed Milwaukee to track COVID-19 cases by race and move way ahead of the federal government in containing that pandemic. So next slide, please. This is amazing. Now, I don't know how many of you have heard that population control impacts climate instability is huge. That if you'll notice on the slide, over 80 gigatons of CO2 could be saved by 2050 with a really well-crafted and enacted family planning program that educates girls. Next slide, please. So this is a breakout of the 16th edition of the World Economic Forum's Global Climate Risk Report. And the bottom line is, right, societal cohesion is more important than ever. Now, we're not trending towards societal cohesion. We are not. We need to concentrate in whatever modality we choose on intergenerational economic justice, dealing with local infusions of capital specifically for health. Big ag produces indentured servitude for big pharma. We have to break this fast food cycle supporting and support local, rural, and municipal farmers. Next slide, please. So each of us has 10 kinds of capital. Only one of them is termed assets. You know, money, land, real estate, enterprises, stocks, trusts. But all of us have all the other kinds of capital. And some of us have more than enough. Next slide, please. So we each, I or we in groups, whatever, need to decide what we want to champion. So there are these political pieces of work about which we've spoken, and there are these global kickbacks from natural systems that want us to get our act together, clean up our mess, including regaining and understanding that we have not offered gratitude or initiated any respectful considerations of growing back in balance with natural systems and treating the world as if our lives depended on her. Our lives and natural systems are gifts to us all living beings. We bring gratitude and balance back into our daily lives, bring ourselves down to earth. Next slide, please. Yeah, before we dive into the work of this plenary of inviting those who have enough to champion some critical activities, there are other beings continuing to work hard to achieve climate stability, as they have done for thousands of years. This is the echidna. This little guy moves 8 trailer loads of soil a year. This little guy, who's like a foot long, helps to tackle climate change. And there are many more, not necessarily like him, but each doing a unique service. And we need to know them, we need to meet them, and we certainly need to protect them. Next slide, please. Again, I'm back to this slide. Anyone with more than enough please consider addressing the outstanding issues that our species has caused to become globally distributed disasters. If you have assets over what is enough for your needs, your family needs, your visions, maybe you haven't acted on your visions yet, but you're really angry or despondent about one or more of these disasters listed here, well, champion the one that's most important to you. It may not be on this list, but it's important to you. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the tutorial part. Consider that money acts like a fluid. I grow what I water. Begin to focus, reassess my values, find my passion, define my advocacy, invest in my passion, and invest for community benefit. Do these exercises. Reassess your values, find your passion, define your advocacy, and stick with it. You can only do one big thing really well. Invest in your passion. Okay, start with 15% of your portfolio and set up a dedicated account. Invest for community benefits. As you get paid back from your investments, you can reinvest in an enterprise that you've already worked with or into another enterprise. Along the way, you will notice other opportunities. Be rigorous. Qualify that entrepreneur and follow through. Next slide, please. These are the 10 principles of the UN Global Compact. They're great. I studied true cost accounting when I first investigated what kind of returns on investments I wanted. And True Cost does the metrics for Millennium Goals. These are global metrics, global metrics. Good to know. But for your own expertise, once you've chosen what is your passion, you will have your own vulnerabilities and local metrics. The most important component of your investment is the person or group. Next slide, please. So I focus on local food and farming infrastructure. Hence, I study vulnerabilities related to the area that I want to lift up. I joined the US Social Investment Forum in 2004. I'm still a member. I joined Responsible Wealth and was a founding member of Slow Money in 2008 and convened Slow Money in 2010, as Miguel mentioned, and participate in the California Economic Summit. But my focus is local food and farming infrastructure, and I have to understand the vulnerabilities involved. Next slide, please. So for community benefits return on investment, I elevate Wild and Radish as sustainable urban farm and eco village. These are the community benefits that I get from a traditional entrepreneur would present their types of investments, right? Equity, convertible notes, loans. Next slide, please. This is kind of the way I present. What have I invested in? You know, compost and good organic compost and a hub for a whole bunch of farmers and farm and co-housing and reclaiming agricultural land and supporting local farmers and affording protection from climate irregularities and grocery stores and trucks and prepaid CSAs for farmer enterprises and fruit tree nurseries and pasture management, mapping app and an app that gives each farmer a voice on the web, and taking the guessing out of fishing with DigiCash technology. Poor fisher people, they haven't been able to do anything with COVID. Whatever you do, buy fish. They count loans for low and middle income farmers and ranchers. And just yesterday, we closed Heal Indigenous people in northern New Mexico from diabetes. Okay, next slide, please. So this is another way to say that. It doesn't mean too much to me, but maybe it does to people who have a lot more money than I do. You know, public awareness, food technology, farming, and food production. And this one is for the fund manager. The previous one was for you and me to understand what I invested in. Okay, next slide, please. So this is how I did, you know, local food and farming finance infrastructure investment outcomes. I had partial write-offs. I was repaid in full. They're still active, and I had to write them off. And that's what happens. Next slide, please. So here's a profile of, you know, how it is that I track stuff, including outcomes sought and true costs ROI, and very interested in people, young people particularly, who invest in these local investments, because all of us are investors. I mean, you saw that thing on money. Look at all that capital we have. And then what happened? So next slide, please. So she decided to grow kale. What do you want to grow? Next slide, please. So the human family has caused myriad challenges and imbalances. So let's clean it up and track what works and what doesn't work, and begin to bequeath a healthy world in balance with natural systems as our legacy to subsequent generations of responsible, interconnected, sentient beings, including the echidna. And you can reach me if you need some help. And you can go to my website to direct relationship-driven investing and find this slide deck. Okay, so thank you all for joining Soil Not Oil, and step up to take on some of the incredible disasters that we've created. Together, we can grow and learn and cause this to be the way of life going forward.